All right, let's jump right in. Today we are talking all about the grief process. But trust me, this isn't going to be what you expect. We're about to uncover how a framework that we usually associate with loss can actually become your secret weapon for making better, faster decisions. Sound interesting? Okay, let's do this. So, when I say the 5 stages of grief, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Come on, you probably know a few of them, right? Denial, anger, they're pretty famous for sure. Yeah, for pretty much everyone, these stages are all about the experience of losing a loved one. It's seen as the classic roadmap for navigating bereavement. But what if I told you that's not what it was originally for at all? Okay, so here's the first big twist. When psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross introduced this whole model way back in 1969, she wasn't studying the people who were left behind. Not at all. She was working with patients who were processing their own mortality, people who were in the process of dying. That is a massive shift in perspective, right? And this is where it gets really interesting for us today. The most powerful, most practical way we can use this framework might have absolutely nothing to do with death. Instead, it's about something every single one of us struggles with, making big, important decisions. Let's dig into why. I know. A model for dying? How on earth does that apply to, choosing a new job or maybe ending a relationship? Well, it all comes down to the very nature of what a decision is. The clue is literally in the word itself. Well, check this out. The word decide comes from Latin, and it literally means to cut off. Isn't that wild? Every single time you make a choice, you are actively, physically, in a sense, cutting something else off. You choose one road by severing your ties to all the other possible roads.
Think about it this way. We get all excited about the new path, right? We focus on what we're gaining. But every yes to something new is also a hard no to an old way of life, an old identity, an old set of beliefs. And your brain? It literally feels that cutting off as a loss.
So here's the punchline. Every big decision forces us to grieve the future that we're leaving behind. That pain is real. And our deep, natural instinct to avoid pain is precisely why we procrastinate on the big stuff. We're not lazy. We're trying to avoid the grief. So this is where the 5 stages become a kind of emotional map. Now, it's not a rigid, step-by-step checklist you have to follow in order. Think of it more like a guide to the emotional landscape you have to cross to get from resistance all the way over to acceptance. So let's just quickly name them so we're all on the same page. You've got denial, then anger, bargaining, depression, and finally, acceptance. Just seeing these stages in your own decision-making process is a total game changer. First up, denial. This is that little voice in your head going, nope, no problem here. I don't really need to change. Everything's fine. It's a defense mechanism, right? It's us clinging to a reality that feels safe, even if it's false, just to avoid the pain of making a tough choice. But you can't stay in denial forever, right? And when that wall comes down, anger often comes rushing in. This is that raw, hot frustration. Why is this happening to me? It's not fair. It's our way of pushing that pain outward, looking for somebody or something else to blame. All right, after the anger cools off a bit, we get to bargaining. This is the stage of what-ifs and if-onlys. You're basically trying to negotiate with reality to avoid the pain. Maybe if I just do a little more research, or maybe if I just try this one other thing, I won't have to make the hard choice. It's a search for a magical third option that doesn't really exist. And, when you realize you can't bargain your way out of it, you can hit this wall of depression. Or maybe a better term is motivational apathy. The full weight of the loss starts to sink in. You start thinking, what's even the point? This is too hard. I just don't have the energy for this. The future feels foggy and overwhelming. And finally, on the other side of all that, we find acceptance. Now, this doesn't mean you're suddenly happy or thrilled about the decision. It just means you've stopped fighting reality. It's that moment where you can finally take a deep breath and say, okay, this is happening. Let's get ready for what's next. So, just knowing about this emotional map is one thing. But the real magic happens when you start to use it on purpose, as a tool, not just to understand why change is hard, but to actually drive it. You can use this in 2 really powerful ways. First, for guiding other people through a change, which makes you an incredibly empathetic leader, or manager, or even salesperson. And second, and maybe most importantly, you can use it to guide yourself, to literally self-coach your way through a tough spot. When you're trying to guide someone else, and they're resisting, it's almost never about logic. It's about deep, unconscious fears. You can remember them with the acronym FATE. F is for focus. the fear of losing control or feeling overwhelmed. A is for authority, the fear of upsetting a boss or a parent. T is for tribe. This is a big one, the fear of being rejected by your social group. And E is for emotion, the simple fear of disrupting comfortable, familiar routines. Figure out which one is in play, and you found the real problem. Okay, so that's for other people. But what about you? Well, instead of just letting yourself get dragged through these stages over weeks or months or even years, you can walk yourself through them intentionally. You can name what's happening. Oh, this is me bargaining. And by doing that, you shrink its power and get to acceptance way, way faster. Here is an incredibly powerful self-coaching question, especially for that bargaining stage. I want you to ask yourself this, and be really honest. Where have you been sitting on the fence, just trying to avoid the clean, sharp, painful cut that a real decision demands? Okay, let's get this out of the world of theory and make it super concrete. What does this actually look like in the real world? Let's use a sales example. It's a great illustration. So imagine you're selling solar panels. You'd think the pushback's about money, right? It's too expensive, but 9 times out of 10, it's not. The real resistance is about identity. For that customer to say yes to solar, they have to grieve their old identity. They have to admit they might have been wrong before, admit they don't know much about it, and maybe even go against their tribe, all the neighbors who don't have solar. A great salesperson doesn't sell panels, they guide that person through their identity grief. So, let's boil all this down. What are the key things to remember? 1. Emotions drive our decisions, and logic is just the story we tell ourselves later to feel good about it. 2. If you want to create change, stop pushing facts and start guiding the emotional journey. And 3. Using this model on purpose lets you compress a process that could take months or years into just a few minutes of focused thought. So I want to leave you with a question to chew on. As you think about that next big leap in your career, your relationships, your life, what is the old belief, the old identity, or the old path that you need to consciously cut off and properly grieve so you can finally move forward? Think about it.